my clock, telling me I should get up. Yeah, I should get up.
Hi, and welcome to The Conscious Loop, where woo-woo and the real world collide. I'm your host, Katrina DeAngelis. Join me as we explore what it looks like to live consciously almost always. Each episode, we dive into transforming mindsets and shifting paradigms through topics such as developing self-awareness, living authentically, communication, strengthening relationships, and leading from the inside out. If you're ready to break out of your unconscious loops and discover what else is possible, you came to the right place. You ready? Let's dive in. All right. Well, Rikki, thank you so much for joining us today. For those
Thank
of
you for
you
having me.
who are just joining us, I have Rikki Marcone here with us. She is an amazing business owner in Toronto. She does events, floral design, corporate weddings, whatever you need, she got it. She also has an online store and has evolved her business multiple times throughout the years, which is really what brought us to this conversation. I wanted to bring Rikki on the show to really get a chance to hear from someone who has done the work, been doing the work, and continues to be doing the work on breaking free from her unconscious loops into more conscious ones and really continuing to develop herself. So I hope you enjoy this as much as I'm going to enjoy filming it. And let's welcome Rikki to the show. Hey, Rikki.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure, such an honor to be speaking with you. I've been following you as well. I'm so proud. Every time I see one of your posts, I'm so excited by what you're doing. I think the work you do is so important and it's so freeing for everybody who has the pleasure of witnessing.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet to hear. And I know we're going to dive in a little bit after I have some questions on a recent post that I know we were speaking about a little bit earlier. So let's dive in. Let's talk a little bit about, when you first started your business and how long ago was that actually? Because I'm not too sure the exact timeline that was. And what was like the biggest hurdle or unconscious loop that you really had to break free of or transform or shift to get to the place that you're really at now? And what did that look like?
So I started in 2015. I started though as a wedding planner. So I've always had event planning in my realm. I started in high school. I was on prom committee and I was, picking centerpieces with my vice principal. And I was like, I love this. I love this organization. I love my spreadsheets. I love my to-do lists. So I started as a wedding planner and I've always been attracted to love and marriage. So instead of being a corporate event planner, I decided to get into weddings, which was really, really, really wonderful. But I found I was spending a lot of time behind a desk. And then when I was at all my weddings, I started to notice all the flowers around the space. And that was something that allowed me to still have the organizational skills that I love. I still do a lot of spreadsheets and Excel, but this also let me create things with my hands, which was something that I didn't get to do so much as a wedding planner. So I did my last wedding planning contract in 2018, and 2019, I was full blown floral designer. So I specialize in weddings. I do take on some corporate work as well. We started doing a lot more corporate work last year. I love working with brands and telling a story through the work we do with floral design that is reflective of brands. So last year we did an event with Kate Somerville where we used a lot of nice, beautiful white textural flowers, and they worked so well with the event that they were trying to put together that I just decided I love corporate and I want to do a lot more of that. And we've started to work with a lot more really cool brands as well. So it's blown off in the corporate world as well for me. When the pandemic hit, though, we weren't having any events. So I had to redesign how we were doing things. So I decided to launch our online store, shop.rikkimarcone.com, only for those in Toronto, the GTA right now, unfortunately. But you can go online and you can purchase fresh flowers for delivery throughout Toronto, the GTA. Great for birthdays, anniversaries. We've got Mother's Day coming up, so we're gearing up for that. But that's kind of become the second half of the puzzle. And now I operate both businesses and they're super fun and I'm enjoying every minute of it.
That's amazing.
My biggest hurdle though, I think when I first started I grew up in a Italian family. We definitely still had some traditional viewpoints in our realm, and I just they didn't feel right. They didn't sit well with me in my body, and I felt a lot of discomfort when I thought about the path that was laid out for me. That I finish school, I get a job, I stay in that job, and my goal is to find a husband, buy a house, start having children. And it was I saw my life set out for me in that way, and it didn't feel good for me. So I spent a lot of time actually dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression, because it just didn't feel good. So one thing I had to unlearn was that it's okay to not do things the way it's set out for you, and embracing that fear and anxiety as a breaking open of what has been kind of compounded on top of you your whole entire life, to see and find who you actually are and what you actually want. Um, I mean, my younger self would definitely not look at it that way. My younger self was in the thick of it, in all of the scarcity, in the anxiety. But now looking back, I wouldn't change a thing about it, because it's brought me to who I am now. And I have
Yeah.
much more peace in my heart and in my mind moving forward, that um, literally taught me that I can do whatever I want to do. I just have to allow myself that.
Oh my gosh. Wow. There's so many things there that I want to just
Let's do it, baby.
yeah, I'm like, okay, so first and foremost, I so appreciate that. I wish I had shivers as you were talking about the
Oh,
traditional kind of
thanks.
mindsets that you grew up with too. And it's and that's the hardest part, right? Is going through that
Mhm.
and not feeling fully like that's what you are aligned with or feels authentic to you, but maybe not necessarily knowing at the time what it's going to be or what it's going to look like, but just knowing that that
Mhm.
doesn't feel right and being willing to follow that and being willing to go through the discomfort to unlearn certain things and relearn what's really true and aligned for you. And it takes so much courage to do that, and vulnerability and really authenticity. It's very authentic to be on a path of finding your authenticity. And
Thank
so
you.
that's really the journey that you are on. And so I really just, yeah, I love that. And I'm so glad, because I love what you said too. You said, your younger self wouldn't have known that at the time. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of times we have these conversations now, and that was the necessary thing that you had to go through to get to this point. But whenever we go through, I mean, to simplify it, I'll say you need to break down to break through, right? We've heard that before. And it's very hard to remember that in a breakdown moment, when you feel
Yes.
like you're breaking down different parts of yourself or your identity, or even just going through a difficult time. It's hard
Mhm.
to know that that's actually what's going to create the transformation that's on the other side. So I really appreciate that. And I think our listeners will too. And I hope that they can take something from that.
Thank
Another
you.
thing I wanted to just touch on, because I think it's so valuable, was how you actually started on this path to floral design and getting into weddings. Because you said in 2015, or I think even you said in high school, you were already helping to plan events like with your principal. And
Yeah.
it's those little clues that you follow along the way that really bring you to where where you want to go, or what feels true and authentic and aligned. And I
Yeah.
always encourage people, like, follow those breadcrumbs, because
Mhm.
you have breadcrumbs available everywhere. There's so much going on always
Yeah.
around you all the time. And so follow what interests you. If you're interested in
Mhm.
something, look into it, be curious about it, because that's what's going to really get you on a path of true alignment. And that's exactly, I resonate with that, because that's what my journey was like too. When I was in elementary school, I remember at my first job, I was working at a hair salon. Actually hilarious. My first job was at a flower shop. I just
Oh yeah.
My first job was at a flower shop, and there's so many lessons I could go into there, but it was
Yeah.
very short-lived. And then I was at a hair salon. And so I was like reorganizing the employee benefits and, you know, employee engagement and coaching my boss at like 14. So
Oh, wow.
like you follow the breadcrumbs of things that
Yeah.
feel natural to you or feel interesting to you. And I mean,
Yeah.
that led me down the path of where I am today with coaching and corporate culture and employee engagement. And it led you down the path to running an entire business and having a team, getting to do really it's artistic direction and creation, and you're out
Yeah.
from behind a computer. But I love that you also get to do both, right? Like it's like
Yes.
you get to do both. You still get to work in corporate. And that's actually that was a third thing I wanted to say as well. I think you said the word corporate a few times and how you kind of support within that area. You said something about not loving being behind a computer. And then we spoke before the podcast even about just essentially bringing woo woo to your real world and corporate in a sense. And I think that that's something that I'm really trying to break down is these two things are not separate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Corporate and business and either running a business or supporting different organizations versus the woo woo practices that we, you know, think about when we hear woo woo, such as like meditation or, you know, dancing or just breath work or whatever it is for you, tarot cards, right? Like everyone kind of has their
Mm-hmm.
thing that they use, but we see them right now as separate. So how do you find that the woo woo and corporate or the real world you've really merged them together quite nicely? And I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about how you do that.
I think the way that I treat myself, which comes from the woo woo, you know, the meditations, the breath work, the dancing practices that I was telling you about this morning. Um, I think the way that I treat myself is the way that I'm going to treat every area of my life. So if I treat myself with scarcity, I treat myself like there's not enough time for what I want to do, there's not enough time for self-care, it reflects in all of these other areas. It's going to reflect in my relationships, it's going to reflect in my work. So I believe that starting with a strong foundation within myself, within anybody, is going to translate into a healthier relationship with your work, with other people. So I start every single morning with my rituals, like I was telling you about before, and that starts me on a fresh page for moving into my day and feeling peace within myself. I think a lot of love and inspiration can be lost in the corporate world when we treat it with a very, I want to say, like masculine lens, where it's competitive. Um, we're comparing with each other. We're all trying to always beat the clock or be on top of things, be in front of the line at the front of the race. But we lose the love and the joy of what we do. You know, like we need to love what we're doing during the day as well. We can't be going to work to grind. That's, oh my God, if I get into that too about killing hustle culture, that's like top on my list of things I love to talk about right now. Because when we are coming at things in that unnatural way, I believe that those unnatural ways of doing things come back to us. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm very guilty that at the beginning when I started my business, I hustled. I thought I had to wake up in the morning and I had to work until I fell down at night. And if I didn't put in all of that time and energy, then I'm not doing enough. And then I saw myself depleting and I saw myself um, not seeing my friends, not doing the things that I love to do, not feeling good, like actually feeling like an empty skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes back to taking care of yourself. And when you take care of yourself, the things that come out are all from a higher, more aligned level.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And I love what you just said about the hustle culture as well. And I definitely have fallen into that trap and have to remind myself almost daily to not fall into it again, because like you said, unlearning is really a practice in and of itself. You have to unlearn in order to relearn. And so I'm curious, where did that unconscious loop and unconscious pattern come from? And what are some changes that you've seen now that you've shifted it? Did it come from maybe how you grew up, how you saw things, maybe your parents? Like, what were some of the things that you went through or experienced or saw that might have contributed to that unconscious loop and how you shifted it and what you now experience due to that shift?
Definitely the way I was raised. We were raised to work hard. My grandmother didn't retire until she was 82. So the matriarch of our family was such a worker. Like she was up at 1 o'clock in the morning to get to work for 3 o'clock in the morning, or yeah, and she didn't get home until evening. So it was very ingrained in us that if you work hard, you get the results. So I always thought I have to work, I have to work, I have to work, I have to work, I have to work. But I really had to learn too that work is not everything. Work is really not everything if I'm not feeling good. I've even had like health problems come from stress too. So when you see how those are so directly aligned with each other, if I'm not taking care of myself first and foremost, nothing is good. Nothing comes from me as good. My creativity is down. What I do is creative. Like I'm blending colors, I'm blending textures, I'm creating something that's totally unique for each of every one of my clients. So if I'm not feeling good, nothing comes out of me.
Yeah.
And valuing the rest, valuing putting my phone down on my 2 days off are Sunday and Monday. I think I should have 3 days off. I think everybody would benefit from 3 days off. But
Agreed.
giving myself the respect to put away my phone for those few days so I can actually rest and recharge. So when I come back on Tuesday,
Mhm.
I come back with the energy that I need to produce for my or to serve my clientele.
Yeah, the ripples of impact. And you mentioned that a bit earlier too, right? Where it's like everything is going to impact at all areas of your life. And how
Mhm.
you start your day is going to impact the rest of your day. How you deal with setbacks is going to also impact the rest of your day. And so these mindsets that you just mentioned as well. So even having, a mindset of, I need to work hard to be successful, that's going to impact everything that you do and how you show up and how you feel
Mhm.
about what you do. Because then anything that comes into contrast with that, such as taking time for yourself and resting or not working, 10 plus hour
Mhm.
days, then that's going to be in direct conflict with that mindset of you need to work a lot of hours or work hard to be successful. And
Yeah.
so now that you've shifted that, and I'm assuming you no longer identify with that, what's your new conscious loop that you've been embodying since that shift?
I think the way I described that hustle as a chase.
Mhm.
And I'm reframing where I'm not chasing, I'm magnetizing.
Mm. Mhm.
So I believe that I need to feel good in my body. And I think if we really all close our eyes and imagine what it feels to magnetize, I think we can all kind of bring that sensation into our bodies. And we know what it feels like. It's that, like, right in my solar plexus, that joy that springs from my solar plexus and my heart. And if I can turn myself on that way every single day through my self care, through my rituals, I
Mhm.
become a magnet for all that I desire versus chasing, 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 chasing.
I love
I
it.
don't chase, baby. Come on.
Come on. Yeah. You're magnetizing things. Things are chasing you.
Yeah, exactly. You
I
become
love
a
it.
match for what is seeking you as well, right?
Exactly. You become an energetic match for things that you do want to attract. And it's interesting that you say, like, when we think of hustle, we think of like we're chasing, right? Like we're chasing that success, we're chasing that destination. But oftentimes the hustle is actually rooted in our past because
Yeah.
we're chasing something that's based on a mindset that is a past mindset or is something that we've observed that's really driving that chase. And so
Mhm.
the mindsets that maybe got us to a certain point and might have, helped you succeed in some way or in some form got you there, but they're not going to be the thing that actually supports you into that highest version of yourself and highest vision of yourself that you have. And so I want to talk a little bit about it. We spoke about it before, but there was a post that you saw of mine that was, make decisions from a place of, or sorry, if you're wondering about how to go about a certain decision, consult your future self
Mhm.
and use your future self as your greatest advisor. And
Mhm.
so really now shifting from being, you know, chained down almost by the mindsets of our past. How do you now use your future self to make decisions? And if you want to talk a bit about that decision and some of the practices that you work on with your coach as well, we would love to hear it.
Mhm. I was so happy when you posted that, because right when I saw that, I was having a day where I was feeling insecure about the decisions that I had to make. And then when I read your post about think about what your future self would do, or what would benefit your future self, I was like, bingo, yes. And then that helped me make a decision that day. So, and you know what? That even planted a seed for like my future thinking too, where I can kind of come back to that piece and reflect on that to make a decision in the moment. But I am absolutely blessed to work with a wonderful life coach. Her name is Josephina Bashout. She specializes in feminine empowerment. She's an earth angel. I'm obsessed with her. I love working with her. And I highly recommend anybody to listen to her podcast, look at her resources. She's incredible. But one thing that
We'll
she
put it in
has
the
me
show notes
do,
as well.
yeah. One thing she had me do was put together an ideal life scene. So she had me map out in relationship, in career, in health, in all of these areas of my life, to map out what my ideal life scene would look like. And I've written it out, and I go back to it 4 times a day. So right when I wake up, I read over my ideal life scene. Then I have alerts in my phone 2 times a day that say recalibrate, recalibrate. So I go back and I read my ideal life scene again. And um, if ever I'm veering off out of maybe an old mindset of scarcity or of fear, it recalibrates me back to the position to get to that ideal life scene where I want to see myself. I also have it recorded. I recorded in my phone, and now I play it as a subliminal when I'm falling asleep. So it's nice to hear it. And now it's like it's memory to me now. It's like muscle memory. So um that helps me to focus on where I would like to see myself and that like future projection.
Mm-hmm. I love it. You know, I mean, we're human, right? There's insecurities that come up often, right? And there's
Mhm.
decisions that come up often. And so being able to have something that can ground you in that decision making and help guide you is just such a quick like shift out of it. Like you said, like it was that one line, like
Mhm.
what would my future self say about this, or what decision would my future self make? And
Mhm.
that can just so easily shift us out of insecurity or indecision or confusion and into clarity
Yeah.
and the next step that we can take
Yeah.
forward. And
Mhm.
so one thing, you know, when you talk about the future scripting and the recalibrating and going over that daily, I'm curious. One thing that comes up that I find with my clients is not having the time, right? Which is it
Mhm.
is a mindset in and of itself,
Mhm.
but not really making the time. And I think that comes from obviously prioritization and not really seeing or knowing what the value could be, of course, until you do something, because it does take
Mhm.
time to build a habit. It does take time to shift some of these things. And so I'm curious, what helped you in the beginning move past some of that resistance or really prioritizing some of that time? And
Mhm.
yeah, what can people learn from that? Because I think there's a little bit of resistance to making the time for practices like this.
I think there needs to be a mindset shift when it comes to incorporating this type of self-care into your routine.
Mhm.
So I think at first it may seem like it's taking time away from you. How am I going to make time for this? I'm already so busy. I don't know how I'll infuse this. But there needs to be some sort of a mindset shift where it's not going to be taking time away from you. It's actually going to be adding time to you. So if I am veering off of that ideal life scene, it's going to probably lead me to a place where I need to work even harder to recalibrate back to where I want to be. So if you can change your mindset to how this is actually a massive benefit for you versus a taking from you, I mean, consistency is key. It's not going to happen if you're doing it once every 3 days. It's got to become habitual. It's got to become ritual to see the result. So if you're committed to the result, it can add time
Mhm,
versus take away time.
mhm,
I find too with myself, anytime I'm changing my routine. I'm a creature of comfort. I love comfort more than anything in this world. Um, it makes me uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So changing my relationship with uncomfortability. I'm somebody that values comfort, but for what I want and for my ideal life scene, I have to change my relationship with discomfort and see it as something that once I move through it, the magic all lies on the other side. So this is something that I'm working on too, is becoming more comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like speaking engagements like this is something that a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have felt massively uncomfortable doing. But the more I started to do it, the more I started to, feel better about what I had to say and know that my perspective holds value as well. So
Yeah.
it's just a moving through of the discomfort and changing my relationship with discomfort, changing my relationship with the idea that something is going to take from me versus give to me was massively important in being able to infuse this into my routine. I mean, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love there's so many things there again. So number one, the discomfort piece, right? So moving past the discomfort and pushing yourself to do things that might feel uncomfortable because you know that they're going to get you to, what's on the other side of that, rather if it's confidence or if it's being better at speaking or just, having more ease in whatever it is, there's something on the other end, right, that you want. And so one thing I think that is a common misconception is that when we see confidence or courage on the outside, we assume that it must just be natural for them or easy for them,
Yeah.
right? And it's funny, like we can know that theoretically they must have gotten there somehow, but yet we're still, and it's more comfortable for us to believe that, right? It's like, oh, well, it
Yep.
must just be natural for them. They're just good at
Hmm.
it. And we're discounting the amount of courage that really does go into something. And so I think courage and confidence is not necessarily the what we see on the outside. Courage and confidence is doing something that is uncomfortable and really just doing it anyways, right? And pushing
Yeah.
through it
Yeah.
and radically just continuing to make the effort rather than avoiding it,
Yeah.
because that's really how you develop the true confidence and courage that we see. But the steps and the practice to get there is also courageous and is also confident. And
Yeah.
so I love that you continue to do that in different areas of your life to really push yourself through that and build that courage and confidence.
Hmm.
And one other thing that I wanted to say as well, with the making time, is you reminded me of something that I used to do, and I still do this when it happens now. But I used to delay making a decision for so
Hmm.
long or get stuck in indecision, and there'd be resistance though to using the practices that I learned, which would be meditation or breath work. I loved breath work. I still love breath work, but when I was
Hmm.
working on this years ago with my coach, that was one thing. And I would resist doing that because I saw it as taking my time, right? I would be like, I don't want to go
Hmm.
take 20 minutes right now to do this and make a decision.
Hmm.
I just want to figure this out. And I would waste hours and be so uncomfortable and annoyed and anxious because I wouldn't be able to make the decision, or I would just be overwhelmed, or I'd be in this place of indecision. So I started tracking how much time I wasted trying to make a decision and being frustrated, and then
Hmm.
tracking the amount of time that it would take me to do 10 minutes of breath work and make a decision.
Yeah.
And
What a powerful tool that is.
yeah, so
Oh
powerful,
man.
right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it takes a little bit of courage in the sense that you have to be willing to look at yourself in the
Hmm.
mirror and really notice how you're holding yourself back, because it's a
Hmm.
lot easier to just continue moving forward and forward and forward and not really look and see where there's opportunity for growth. And
Yeah.
so I still track it. If I find myself like in overwhelm, I'm like, okay, how long did I just waste being overwhelmed? Then I could have done 10 minutes of breath work,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I'm
Hmm.
like, there goes an hour. So yeah, of course, maybe there is time that goes into it, but how much time do you waste being stuck in overwhelm or being stuck in just feeling uncomfortable, which is not fun either, right? So thinking about
Yeah.
the time that you actually get back, the energy that you get back, the joy and the even the positive feelings in your body that you get back. Cause I feel
Oh
way
yeah.
better after breath work or dancing than I
Yeah.
do after
Mhm.
staring at my computer and then going into shutdown mode where I just want to lay on my bed, you know?
Yeah. 100%.
So yeah, I love that time piece. It's
Yeah.
that's a really powerful one. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah. It's great for cultivating self-trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our bodies are wired to help us make decisions, right? Like our solar plexus feels sensations, our hearts feel sensations, our wombs will feel sensations.
Mhm.
And we do have all the answers. We just have to learn how to access them. Our bodies are far wiser than our minds are.
Absolutely. We feel things faster than we know them, right? Like
Mhm.
we feel things in our body before our brain has time to catch up. And that's
Mhm.
why people who are so, you see those people that are really in touch with their intuition or are able to just like take a pause and, know what the next step is. That's using the subtle sensations in your body before you even go to the mind. And
Mhm.
as humans, our first instinct is to go to our mind first rather
Mhm.
than really go to our body first. But the mind is using those unconscious patterns, those unconscious loops to not necessarily in a negative way. They're not trying, those patterns are not trying to hurt us, but they're trying to keep us safe. So the
Mhm.
question is, are our unconscious patterns, loops, beliefs, mindsets, whether we got them from culture or family or wherever we got them, do they actually feel true to us, or are they just trying to protect us? And is there a better way that we can protect us and do the right thing that's more aligned with us? And the answers really lie within the body. And that's why I
Yeah.
love that question, like, what would your future self do? Because it's a way of getting in touch with your body, getting in touch with you, rather than seeking externally. Because oftentimes, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love working with therapists, I love working with coaches, obviously, I love like learning and all of these things, but oftentimes we go to somebody else first, whether it be even a friend or a
Mhm.
parent or a coach, like whoever it is, we
Yeah.
go to someone else first for the answer rather than asking ourselves. And sometimes we're just seeking that validation, and it's often unnecessary, but we're just seeking that validation because we don't necessarily trust ourselves yet. But a
Mhm.
lot of times we just don't want to ask ourselves. We want somebody else to tell us. And then we break that relationship with ourselves. And think about, if
Yes.
you're going to somebody else all the time and not taking their advice, then you're
Yeah.
probably going to break trust in that relationship. So if your
Mhm.
body's constantly trying to tell you something and constantly trying to give you advice, and you're not taking it, or you're ignoring it, or you're not listening to it, then you're eroding that trust as well. So it does take time to build that and put the energy into the practices like you had mentioned to really build that trust and relationship with yourself as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you touch on external validation, like we need something outside of us to confirm it.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to self-trust. How much do you trust yourself? How much do you value your own opinion?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
do you need other people to validate it before you'll act on it?
Yeah.
Which could be also like an old mindset of, I don't know what's best for me. I don't know what's going on. I'm incapable of making a decision. I need other people to give me a sign off before I can move forward with something. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a protection mechanism too, right? Sometimes we're scared to uh, do something that nobody else has done, or nobody in our immediate circle has done. But
Yeah.
I kind of went into this with Josephina a few weeks ago. I said, I don't really feel like I have people in my immediate circle that have done what I'm doing. So when I do things outside of my comfort zone, I get really scared. And she said that you don't always have to look within your immediate circle. You can look at people outside, people that you read about, people that you look up to. You can
Yeah.
look at those people as role models and feel so much better about what you're accomplishing. It doesn't need to be in your immediate circle, and you don't need your mom to call you and say you're doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes breaking out of the small bubble, you know what, this is something that I also had to unlearn, is that it's okay to break out of the bubble or the expectation that was put on you and do something far bigger than your wildest dreams. It's okay to do that. You are that person. You are that girl.
I love that. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yes. Yes. And it's,
Yeah.
oh, and it's so good too, because I feel like, we prevent ourselves. And I know I've done this in my past. It's like I prevent myself from making decisions that I know are going to transform my life, you know, and whether it's in business or personal or moving across the country, we make these really bold decisions that maybe to other people, they wouldn't make those decisions, or they're like, are you sure that's the right thing? Are you sure you want to go about it that way? What if this happens? What if that happens? And all these sorts of things. And it's like, it's all coming from a place of good intent. And it's not going to be the thing that really supports you in propelling forward. Like, you really do have to trust yourself and look around and see that just because you might not know somebody personally that is doing it, there are so many people that are doing it and that you can learn from. And you can in-source that motivation and appreciation, because that does happen, right? We look around and we want people to recognize us and be like, wow, like, you're so courageous, like, amazing, like, you're doing so well in your business. You're looking so fit. Have you been working out? Right? It's like we're doing these things and we want people to recognize us for them. And oftentimes we don't get it.
Yeah.
And so really being able to recognize and in-source that motivation and appreciation and recognition, and seek whether it's advice or the motivation or the people to really look at and see what they're doing in a way that's going to be aligned for us. Someone once said, and I'm sure you've heard this because I'm sure this advice has kind of circled, but I still love it. You know, don't take advice from someone whose shoes you wouldn't want to be in.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, right. And it's like, it's not that they're in a bad place. It's not that they're, you know, in any sort of that they should be looking at what they're doing. It's just to say, like, they are not you and
Yeah, it's
you
not
are not
aligned.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So take
I love
everything
that
you
piece.
hear with a grain of salt, because so often that's what holds us back. It's the fear of other people's judgments. It's the fear of other people's concerns. And that's the voices we hear in our head are often not even our own. They're other people. And so really starting to separate those voices and say, is this my voice, my inner voice, or is this somebody else's? And if so, whose, or where did that come from? And the more that you can separate what's yours and what's not yours, then the more aligned you can be, the smoother decisions are going to be. And it doesn't mean that everything's going to be easy, but at least it means that you don't have 100 other voices in your head that are trying to hold you in the current version of yourself. Because if you're you want to be in that next version of yourself, that next iteration of yourself, you need to be looking this way, and you need to be shifting the mindsets that are really holding you back from that. So.
Yeah. And once you do recalibrate that within yourself and you are more aligned to where you want to be, the community starts to pop out. When I really leaned in and accepted what I want, let's talk about acceptance first. So I knew that I had a vision for my life and I wanted to do this, but there was a little voice in my head that said, how dare you ask for so much? Who do you think you are asking for so much? And once I learned how to calm that voice and say, no, I am that person, then I started to align with what I truly wanted in my life and accept it and not feel shame for it. It was almost like I knew how much money I wanted to make, but I felt shame because I said, some people have nothing. Some people have nothing. How dare I ask for that much? But when I started to lose that shame, I started to realign and focus on the goal. And once I was more focused on the goal and who I wanted to be, my friend circle changed. You know, like the people in my immediate circle changed and became more aligned with who I want to be. And now I'm so blessed that the community of people I have around me are so supportive and share similar goals and beliefs that now it makes it so much easier for me to go after my own. We almost like are giving each other permission to move forward with what we want in our lives.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it's shifting that, you know, the scarcity mindset versus abundance, right? It's the more I have, the more I want, the more I dream, the more I'm taking away from someone else, right? That's a scarcity mindset versus abundance. It's like, I am capable, I am worth whatever my dreams are, whatever I want, like anything I want can be available to me. if I really tune into that and align with that. And through that, there's going to be ripples of impact that have, positive ripples outwards into all areas of life, whether it be your family, your friends, your community, the communities you do want to serve or have an impact on, right? Like anything becomes possible from that place of abundance and true alignment. And so
there's enough for everybody.
yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Something we can learn from nature.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I know we're coming close to time here. So I want to give you the opportunity to share anything that maybe comes to mind. And one my final question that I have for you is, what was, or even currently is, a challenge that you find resurfaces? So you had mentioned a couple things in this call. So you talked a little bit about money mindset, even, or how tradition holds us back, or even shame, and really, fully owning what you want and what your dreams are. And I think a lot of people can resonate with all of those things. And also, we know that it's not just an overnight thing that changes. So what do you find is a consistent challenge that comes up day to day, whether it's a past challenge or current challenge? And what would be some advice for somebody who can resonate with that or is going through something similar? What can they do on a day-to-day basis to really support them?
One thing that comes up for me constantly is becoming friends with discomfort. So as my career evolves, opportunities keep coming forward to challenge that fear of discomfort or to get comfortable with discomfort. So I know that where I want to go and where I see myself in my ideal life scene, I'm going to have to become friends with discomfort. There's going to be a lot of movement in my life and in my career where I'm going to do things that I've never done before, whether it be doing a design or doing a wedding that I've never done before, like doing an installation, maybe a hanging piece or something to a size that I've never done before. I'm going to constantly be pushing myself out of my comfort zone. So I really need to come back to the foundations of myself and the comfort that or not the comfort, the strength that I have within myself to keep tackling that discomfort. So that is going back to my rituals, the habits that I build in my sanctuary here before I move out into the world is what I'm going to fall back on to continue to challenge discomfort. Trusting my body too, always trusting my body and the sensations that are coming up within a certain situation, going back to my chakra system and seeing what's on fire right now, what's feeling contracted, what's feeling expansive, and then using that as a tool for guiding myself forward in a decision is super important. So that's something that I continuously retrain myself to do. Also, coming back to my breath. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll ask myself, where's your breath? And often it's like up there versus here, and relaxed and deep. Something that comes up for me too is the old idea that I have to go it alone. That it's all my responsibility, everything, I'm by myself, I got to make all the decisions. And learning to lean more into the support that's around me, because there's a lot of support. If I'm not looking at things from a scarcity viewpoint anymore, right? I'm not looking at it like, oh, I have to do it by myself. Nobody's going to help me. I'm on my own. No, everybody that's around me loves me and supports me. So that's something too, where I'm learning that I have to go it alone. I'm never alone. I'm never alone. I'm always connected with something. And that scarcity comes in. Scarcity is something that's been with me my whole life from my upbringing, and retraining myself all the time to see things as abundant. My life is abundant. One thing that I say to myself every morning is, I am seeing the world as my abundant playground. That I have so much fun in every single day, and that recalibration truly makes a difference. Consistency is key. Consistency is key. So
Mhm.
practicing these things every single day is going to keep you on the right track to move towards that future self. And then before you know it, you're going to blink and you're in your future self.
Right? The future self is like literally a second away, right? There's
Yeah.
the now. Everything exists at the same time, right? We have the
Mhm.
past, the present, and the now, but they're basically all now, right? Like we are shaped by the past and we make decisions for the future, and those are all
Yeah.
happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're gonna blink and it's there because
Mhm.
it is, right? And I
Yeah.
freaking love the abundant playground, like the world is your abundant playground.
Yeah.
That's just such a reminder, like have fun.
Yeah. Play.
Play.
Have
Like,
fun. When did we stop playing?
yeah, it's like just because things are uncomfortable doesn't mean they're not fun.
Mhm.
And you mentioned, I love what you said about the discomfort thing, because like changing your relationship with discomfort, like discomfort is your friend. You can play, you can have fun with it.
Yeah.
Discomfort for me is the indicator that I'm on my growth edge, because
Yes.
you have people, you're in your comfort zone, right? And
Mhm.
then it's like something becomes uncomfortable. I'm hitting that edge now of my comfort zone, and I can
Yeah.
choose to like have fun with it, play,
Mhm.
befriend it, and like expand my zone of comfort, and then continue to do that. Or I can just stay in my comfort zone and things
Yeah.
will be okay, but they're not really going to evolve to go towards my dreams or anything, that I really want to achieve. And so befriending your discomfort, I love that. I love that. And then that just
Yeah.
goes so hand in hand with the breath, right? Like coming back to the
Mhm.
body. It's like, if you feel uncomfortable, okay, on the edge of my comfort zone, take a breath. And what do I want to do next? Like,
Instantly, it
where do I
shifts.
go from here? Yeah, even
Yeah.
just like shoulders back, little
Mhm.
like wiggle, like just, yeah, we get so stiff and stuck, and energy
Yeah.
is, I mean, it moves so easily, but sometimes we forget that because we don't move in our bodies, right?
Mhm.
So just encouraging that play, breathe, befriend your discomfort, and building that trusting relationship with yourself.
Mhm.
All great advice.
I think too with discomfort, we're afraid of failure. We're afraid
Mhm.
of making mistakes by going into places that are uncomfortable or unfamiliar. And I think it's so important, um, when you're cultivating self love, to give yourself the grace of making a mistake or
Mhm.
screwing up.
Yeah.
Because if you're not giving yourself that grace, you're holding yourself back from the
Mhm.
potential of what could be. And, old saying that we've heard a million times is like, at least you tried, right? You can
Yeah.
either try and fail or not try and stay where you are. And I think we all know that, but
Mhm.
it's a matter of actually applying it to ourselves and loving ourselves enough to forgive ourselves when we screw up. I'm not perfect. You're
Yeah.
not perfect.
Yeah,
Nobody's perfect.
exactly. You need to
So
fail to
holding ourselves
forward.
to like kinder standards, being kinder to the way we feel about things.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
important.
So important. And, you need to fall down to get back up. You need to fail to learn, or figure out what you need to unlearn to relearn, right? Going back to what we were saying earlier. And the way I see it is there are no wrong decisions. Like you
Hmm.
can't get it wrong, because you
Yeah.
can always make a new choice. You can always learn something. You can always move forward. So knowing that, then like what decision becomes wrong, and not making a decision, like the indecision that we get stuck in because
Hmm.
of scarcity or because of our limiting beliefs or whatever it is. Indecision is also a decision, right?
Hmm.
It's a decision to
Yes. The
stay.
choice.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
And so make a decision. You can't get it wrong. You can always make a new decision. And as soon as you make a decision, like everything aligns, like the universe conspires in your favor, right?
Yes.
It's like you decide you want to move to a new country, and then all of a sudden a friend's like, hey, I know someone who lives in, I'll use the example that I just went with. I know someone who lives in LA. I'll
Yeah.
set you up with her so you can have a place to
Yeah.
stay. It's like you make a decision and things just happen.
Yeah.
And
I saw
so,
this thing. It says the universe rewards courage or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
Just so powerful.
So powerful. So powerful.
Yeah.
The universe rewards courage. I love it.
Mhm.
Oh, such a good conversation.
So good. I could go for hours on
I
this.
could go for hours. We'll definitely need a part 2
Yeah,
for
we'll
sure.
follow up. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. I love it.
exactly. We'll see if anyone from any of our listeners have any questions and bring you back on again. But for now, Rikki, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
This
you
is so
so much for having me.
valuable. And I would love share with people how they can stay in contact with you, especially if you're in Toronto, need some flowers. But how can people stay in contact with you and get in touch if they would like to?
You can follow us on Instagram. Everything is updated on Instagram consistently. My handle is at Rikki Marcone, RIKKIMARCONE. If you're looking to send flowers in Toronto or the GTA, website is shop.rikkimarcone.com. If you want to reach out directly to me, my email address is info@rikkimarcone.com.
Amazing. Well, there's lots of holidays coming up. So
Yeah, baby.
you'll be hearing from me for some
Yeah.
flowers.
Mother's Day coming up.
Exactly, Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And we're excited to have you back here on the show.
Would love that. Thank you so much.
Like what you heard and want more? Stay connected with our community on social media using the links below. Like us on your favorite podcast provider and sign up for the Conscious Loop newsletter, where we only send you goodies with one intent: to break your unconscious loops. If you have an unconscious loop you want to break free from, let us know so we can feature that loop on the show. Info and show notes, and we'll see you next time in the Conscious Loop.